Okay, what's up? It's the possibly long-awaited for you, definitely long-awaited for me, tutorial, you could say, for Artificial Ascent. Before anything, it's worth saying, I had a not-so-pleasant experience with this level. In some way, it should have been kind of a good experience. It's the first level in ages that I didn't die at the end to. I fluked the last sort of 20% or so. It is very easy, as you'll see, but still. Took ages because of certain things. Felt really boring and slow and sluggish. And that may influence what I say about the level in a way that makes it sound kind of bad, whereas you might enjoy it a lot. Because I did notice that loads of people seem to enjoy this a lot. I don't necessarily agree. It's probably not that bad. Take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt, but I might still be right, is what I'm saying basically. So let's get going. Now, the first part that runs about the first 5% is this extremely boring, in every conceivable way, intro cube that every time, and is, like a 4-star difficulty part that you will only die to because, you paused the level, or you're AFK, etc. Worth mentioning this little jump here. Firstly, this is a pad, and then you hit this and jump in here. Except that somehow the way this works, firstly, if you jump too early, you will hit this. But if you wait too long, you hit this portal, but not this one, and you go upside down, and you're not really meant to. So don't jump too late, but otherwise, who cares? It's not worth talking about that part. This wave sucks. You go up, and you go up here and into the ship. It's just generally a bit inconsistent. This killed me way more than you might expect something at 5% to kill you. It doesn't really matter because it's early, but more importantly, you just kind of can't do anything about it. You either make it or you don't. You just click a button twice, and either it worked or it didn't. As you transition into the ship from that, you hold to straighten the ship. The ship naturally comes out low, so you hold from the wave into this first bit of the ship. Click and hold this with the same motion through this portal. You essentially, click and hold all the way through. You don't really, there's not much to say about the orbs, because you pretty much just need to hit them in the middle. It's not that important how early or late you hit them. I'd say, in my experience, it was more important if you weren't leveled out enough as the ship going into them. As you click and hold from this time, you also hold all the way into this cube, which, if I remember correctly, what do you do actually? I think you jump, fall... No, what the fuck? Okay, I've just done my run through the whole level. I remember how it works. So you hold out of the ship, so that the cube, which comes upside down, jumps. This is a reverse orb. You hold it, so it reverses you. You jump. You then become upside down again. Jump, jump. And then between here, you release and press again, so that the orb that's here flips you and you jump. Now this bit is simple. It's even simpler than I thought it was. What I did was, after this jump, I let go. And essentially by then holding right as I entered the portal, the ship would stay close to this ledge, and that meant I could consistently enter flat. And you really don't have to do much adjusting to stay level through here, and it's really easy and you get used to it. Also discovered that if you just hold the whole way, the ship does kind of wind through completely on its own until about here, and then you just do a small correction. So that's also easy. The story for the beginning of the level, though, is the cube's free, obviously. This wave is a bit annoying, but, effectively, you don't have to think about it. This is free. This is free. This is free. This part's also really easy. It's a duel and it's a bit weird, but essentially you just look at the ball here. And it's like click, click, click is all you have to really look at. And then let the balls fall in here. You'll end up as the ship. I think you'll end up quite low. You have to hold to fly up as a mini ship into here. Press again, press again. This stuff gets very consistent. It's very simple. I would advise that you keep it simple. Just do individual clicks, Don't overcomplicate the click patterns. Then you end up here, which has orb, 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 orb. And as the cube, you're meant to flip up and down and up and down. However, you can just jump over 2 areas here. People like Aeon have advised you don't do the first one, because to be fair, if you enter this cube too high, you just can't jump early enough to avoid the orb. You can do whatever is most comfortable. I didn't know this until I beat the level already, pretty much, so I didn't care. You can hit all the orbs and it's extremely consistent as well. All of this stuff, to be honest, you don't have to sweat about. There's much bigger problems in the level. This part upcoming here, I would count as one of them. This part is the first part where it starts to get less consistent. This is still in the realms of it was very consistent as I beat the level, but up until that point, it was very shaky. It's the type of part where you wake up one day, and even though you remember you ended the last session really good, you wake up, you play the level, and you just can't do this part until 30 minutes have passed, and then you've warmed up to it. I don't really like those sorts of experiences and levels, but whatever. That's this part. You enter the ship, upside down. The way I made this more consistent was I timed this so that I hit this ledge, because if you don't do that, and you go straight into the portal, you zoom up here, and that's really out of control. So to stay more in control, I try and time it so I hit this ledge, so I fall more flat this way. That allows me to hold quickly to slam into this. And this is going to be quite complicated. Crash the ship here so that it's flat, always. And then after coming through this portal, you maintain straight flight with just individual clicks. What happens is you come up, and then as you fall here, again, come up into the middle. But as you do that, you hold this click so that as you come up, you're central, and you keep holding, and it automatically does the first ball input for you. You can then very easily do the next two. Obviously, you can't hit this too early because there's a spike, but that's not a particularly difficult window. You come up, do not jump immediately, because if you jump too early, you will die. Wait a little bit to make this jump. You will then become a duel with the cube. Quickly 1, 2. Obviously, the timing isn't hard. Like, this won't kill you. Just do something consistently, and then you have a ship needs to do the straight flight, and you have a cube that needs to jump over this spike. However, the cube has to jump over the spike and then fall off, which means that you cannot be clicking with the ship too late, or else the cube here will hit this saw. This might seem a bit awkward, but the pace, like the speed of the ship, the speed that you're going at this part, if you just do a couple of clicks really early in the first half of this straight fly to maintain your position, you can just fall out like the second half of this straight fly quite easily. You then in this UFO just click twice, click once here, fall down and click these two orbs. It's very simple. This is such an outside possibility death that I couldn't force it to happen just now when I was playing through the level. It's possible if you fuck up the timings there, but too bad. The UFO can crash into this spike. I remember it happening, and the solution was don't click this too early. That was part of it. If you actually wait, well, that might seem counterintuitive, somehow the UFO actually comes in here lower. Whatever. Again, this actual part is quite long, and there's a couple of awkward bits, but a lot of it is genuinely simple. Here's this robot. You're intended to jump up, hit this orb, go through. That's easy. Even easier is to just jump straight through the robot and not bother with this orb. You then just jump through here and click this orb into the wave. This wave is the hardest part of this section, probably. It's one of the weirder and just trickier ways. It's a ball ache more than anything else, basically. You zigzag through, and it's at this transition point that you don't really have that much time to react. You can quite easily hit the bottom. You can quite easily click too early. I don't have a solution for that. You've just got to practice. As you then go through this kind of awkward part here, there are orbs here and here. You just hold the first one, automatically jump through. Don't hold too long, because then you'll jump over this pad and die. Take the pad, click this orb, just buffer the orb, and then you do a little wave section that doesn't need much explanation. It got pretty much 100% consistent. Then on to the next section. I know really this wave is the start of the next section, but in my brain that's not how I did it. This part, again, normal, rather consistent stuff continues, although I'd say it probably does. On paper the difficulty ramps up. I don't know if that tracks in practice. Click this orb, come up and click the orb, and then this part is one of the stranger parts of the level. You do really as the ball, just click to come down, orb, release quickly so you don't jump and hit the spike, just slide into the portal, and then it's a little ship part and stuff. It's a bit strange. This, you definitely learn into this. It's doing this little quick sequence. The tricky thing really, as I said, is not holding this click too long and jumping into the spike. The only solution I have for the whole thing is I think lighter taps understandably make it easier, But otherwise, it's just a rhythm that you learn, and it should be relatively easy to physically do, and relatively consistent. As the ship, you straight fly a bit, you fly up, you click the orb, so that you go into this portal, and then click that orb to jump up, you then jump, click this orb to fly up here, jump, and just, release and fall through. Then at Zobros' part, one of the quirkier parts of the level is a weird jewel. Now the ships fall here and here, and as this ship flies up through the spike, the other ship hits an orb and goes up to this portal. I focus on the top ship that flies between the spikes. You have to wait long enough until the ships have settled, and then I watch this ship and try and guide it pretty much right through the middle of the spikes. This is something that you just get used to. To be honest, I didn't even, in attempts, really focus on that ship too hard. I just kind of felt it became a muscle memory part for me personally. But if you want, I would recommend, if you watch something, you watch the ship fly through the spikes, and then relatively quickly you will the reverse or flip the ship in the spikes, which means you have to release and click again so that you go up. And if you do it too late, you hit a spike. So you got to do it early enough, but not so early that you crash within the structure itself. You just have to figure this out, muscle memory wise. You hold and bash these two platforms, let yourself fall through the middle of these spikes, which is quite simple. That's not too difficult. You then click and hold this orb, just hit it roughly in the middle, and hold, and you crash into the top of these platforms again, and fall down, and then straight fly. And then here, it's another little weird sort of asymmetrical part, and again I focus on the bottom ship that's flying through the spikes, kind of like before. You let yourself fall so that you're in line with the first orb. You do one click so that you're in the middle of the spikes, one click on the orb, and hold that. If you release too early, you can die to these spikes. And then once you're the UFO, you just click, 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 and do not click too early. It is much easier to click too early than too late, in my experience. So just make sure you click late enough on this one, and it's fine. And now, the problem with the level, in my opinion. Maybe I was just doing it wrong. Maybe it's not a good part. Spoiler, I would bet the house that it's just not a good part. Firstly, I just don't like this part because I should say everything up until this point in the level, in my experience, was tricky but not challenging in pretty much any way. It wasn't really much of an obstacle. This is the definition of an obstacle. This part was devastating. Devastating, and it's, like 3% long maybe. And essentially what happens is, just to run you through, you jump through these spikes and hold so that you just land on this and jump. You hold that whole way, I think. You jump between here, these orbs, you bounce like flipping gravity between them, up, down. You jump and click these two orbs to go through here. You jump over a triple spike, then you jump and hit this orb, and that's it. You just jump and click orbs. This is a ball ache of a gap. You just die, you just don't jump in time, you just jump too early and hit this, you just jump too early and don't make it. I had so many deaths in this part. And I'm going to go out on a limb, just on the record, and say timings are my best game mode, naturally. So that's something. It's just one click, that's a ball ache. Love that. You then have this, which I could believe that you could get very consistent at that with the right strategy and visual cues and so on. Aeon, in his video that I watched, said if you kind of just watch how close the cube is to the spikes rather than think about the orbs, it's easy. I would agree that the best starting point is not clicking this orb too early. And then I recommend that you find God. It was the type of part that admittedly felt like it could have been consistent, but it just never was. It is what it is. Here, don't jump off the ground too early. The easiest way is to wait a little bit, and then if you jump a little late, you can pretty much spam these as early as you can and it'll work. This jump isn't really too bad, just don't choke, basically. It is literally a triple spike, and it's not that hard to make. This triple spike timing is way easier than this timing anyway, so it's not a big deal. You can even... maybe it might only be one frame or something. You can jump so close to the spikes it triggers the troll death animation, but you don't die. And the most simple timing I found for this orb is that you hold the triple spike click and then just hit the orb sort of mid to mid-late. If you jump too early, you will die. But Otherwise, it's quite an open window. Now, this part, in my brain, I kind of connected to Michigun, and in the end, it worked out being fine because I made this part much more consistent, although it didn't begin that way. It was initially not consistent based on pretty much one part of this little section. As the mini ship, it's not really a straight fly, but it's much easier if you follow a very simple click pattern. So you don't do lots of clicks, you just sort of do one click to go up and down here, one click to go up and down again, and then click to enter this portal. You then do one click to come through, hit the orb, one click, very simple. You know, not really adjusting much into this. I don't think you really have to, because the way I would then do this is, again, you let the ship fall and do one click to sweep up and over, and then straight fly the rest. And this is really easy, it's really open. What I would kill myself on was this bit early on, because I did a weird thing where I'd hold immediately into this reverse portal so that the ship would slam onto this surface, and then I'd just release at the right time. But that ends up being kind of an awkward timing, whereas just letting yourself fall through and then doing one sweeping motion here is really easy. So do that. My best advice here, understand the most basic click pattern you can do without making it complicated, and just do that. And I should say as well, you just gotta play Michigun as part. I don't have a cue for this first jump. Like, I don't really have a solution to this problem. You know, I don't have a solution to making the timings easier. If you really want to, feel it out, but I'd recommend just either quit the level because it's not good, or dig in your heels and just suck it up and get used to it. That's literally all I got. And then you're kind of home free. To be honest, the rest of the level from that point is easy. Like, even easier than the parts before Michigun. Really, all of the difficulty is concentrated in the first third. The rest can be solved, essentially. Like, legitimately, I pretty much solved it. And I'm now, that's why I'm presenting my solutions. Like, to be honest, it's so easy, I'm really not going to go into detail for a lot of it. As the cube, I just do 2 jumps. They're really simple. You click these orbs. You don't crash into anything. Again, I don't have specific directions. You'll see that it's quite simple. Just don't, mind block yourself doing stupid shit. It's just, remember, it's easy and don't overthink it. Here, you're meant to do something like jumping and clicking these orbs. You don't have to bother with that. You can just fall down to the bottom platform, jump, hit this orb, I would say slightly in the middle. You may not have to, but that's what I did. And then you've got this weird kind of janky UFO. The easy way that I would do this is I'd do one UFO jump, not too early so that you hit the spike, but you just kind of do it at a normal time, sort of a middle timing. And after that one, you do 3 more, but you got to delay the 3 jumps. You do the first jump and then you kind of spam 3 jumps. If you do the second jump too early, you can bonk on something here and die. So you just do 1, wait, 1, 2, 3, then you do 3 jumps from here. Even if you hit this lip, doing the 2 following jumps will happen quick enough that you won't die anyway. This part's not really the hard part, it's just bonking here is the big deal. As the ball, it's possible to click too early. You don't have to really think too hard. You just click, and then the key thing is not to click this too early. You got to click it quite late. And I would advise, just understand that you can get away with clicking this later than you probably expect. So don't be afraid to hit it too late and miss. You then click again, bounce through, you got this little wave that's quite easy and open. These jumps can be a bit strange, but to be honest, again, they're super free, they're not hard. I jump roughly, contrary to what this arrow would intend you to believe, I jump more in the middle here, and then this orb you can kind of click whenever that way. If you jump too late, I think you crash into this completely, you don't even make it to the orb. But the later you jump, the more possible it is for you to die by clicking this too early by hitting the spike. So I jump more in the middle, jump, and while I think you can get away with holding this orb so that you then jump automatically over the spikes, I never did because it would just, sometimes it would trip you up. Sometimes you would also just crash into the spikes because you're not holding. There's a trade-off to be made there. It's up to you. I preferred to do this triple spike jump separately and then just hold and click this orb and just kind of coast through. And then you do a little click to keep straight, fly down, straighten yourself out through here, click this orb, don't click it too light and too late because you can hit those spikes, jump, wave through, not hitting the spikes, which you can see the spikes. Don't go too low if there's a spike low, etc. Figure it out. Again, and as I said, this stuff is all very routine and it's very forgiving. That's the way I describe everything after about 36%. It's all actually quite forgiving. And where it isn't, I found quite consistent methods. You do this UFO spam, which is really easy, but something really weird would happen sometimes here if you did your last click in the spam too late. So I would do 3 clicks and I'd spam pretty much as fast as possible. I'd do like click, 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 so that I was pretty much done almost at the halfway mark of the spam. And then you could get away with falling. Then in the ship, you straight fly. The one thing to watch out for is that if you fall too low into this portal, you will hit the spikes instead of hitting this platform and continuing. So I made a deliberate effort to essentially make sure I clicked into the portal and held. The point is you fall onto this platform and jump. So I would just hold a click into the transition that would then make me jump. You then have to jump over this spike, fall down, and I would immediately hold a buffer hold on here to jump off of these. You then hit this orb, and then you do this weird ball stuff. This ball is a bit weird. Apparently it gives some people a lot of trouble. I didn't think it was really hard at all. I wouldn't call it difficult. It's definitely strange though. The timings really aren't strict basically, but it's hard to execute consistently because it's just a bit... There's not really a good way of maintaining a really consistent timing. You can kind of use the circles in the middle of the spikes as a visual cue for where you want the ball to fall through, but what I would really drive home is just do this part in practice, get a feeling for the timings and how much room you've got. And with practice, you will become consistent at it in practice, and you then just have to not overthink from zero. The biggest problem with this part I had was when I would get there and kind of try too hard to time things. Basically, honestly, you may as well close your eyes and just click, just muscle memory. You got to switch off your brain when you get here so that you do it as if it's practice. Because in practice, it's so pointless, you kind of don't even think about it. So in the same way, don't overthink it from zero. This final click is the one that you might pay attention to. I didn't even really do that though, because if you go too early, you don't make it onto this platform. Still, it's not a difficult timing. You can do the same thing aiming through the middle of that circle, and then all you do is jump from platform to platform. You can overshoot this platform, but it's not really too scary. This is a free part that's meant to make you more nervous, and you very well might be, so try not to be nervous, I guess. It is genuinely quite simple. You can dodge the speed change apparently, but I don't know why you'd ever do that. Just hold immediately in here, whatever, it doesn't matter. You don't even really have to construct a really specific click pattern, it's just, there's a lot of open space and it's slow. Here, as you transition in from the wave though, it's a bit awkward because this gap means you can't naturally fall straight in, you can't naturally hold in, you've got to do a little click to adjust yourself at the end, essentially. Although I think you might be able to line it up close here and fall in. I wouldn't gamble on that though, probably. Personally, I went up, down, and then did a little click. It is very valid to go down, up, and then let go. This part is tricky though. This is probably, well, it's probably the second hardest part in the last 2/3. It's one that feels like it has a lot of pressure. It just feels tight and claustrophobic. It's that type of gameplay. But I found extremely consistent methods for everything. The first few jumps actually took the longest to suss out. This first jump, it's actually kind of easy to jump too early and hit the spike. The best visual cue, the best cue I can give is to try and jump about halfway. Don't jump too early, just try and wait until you're sort of halfway and then jump. You hold the button after this jump so that after hitting the pad, you immediately jump off here, just for consistency, and click this just before the middle. If you make the jump and hold, so you always come off the same way, just before the middle will always be about right. If you jump too early, you hit this saw. If you jump too late, you can hit this spike. It's a really unseeming orb. The orb does not stand out, but it will catch you out. In fact, everything here can catch you out if you don't, A, build consistency, and B, keep a consistent kind of set of cues so that you can fall back on a method that you know will work. So yes, after holding this click to the orb, you click just before the middle of the orb, is how I did it. On this jump, this is one that can catch you out too. If you jump really early, you die. And there is a spike for you to hit that catches up to you quicker than you'll expect when you're nervous, especially. My cue here is to jump roughly at the middle of this platform. If you jump visually, if you wait until you're right about the middle of this platform, that's a good time to jump. And then this jump, you just jump late. You just jump as you're approaching the end of the lip, and that's quite consistent. And that makes, because these jumps, although it feels kind of slow, it's not a fast speed, just it feels very cramped, and it can feel like when you're nervous that the jumps come at you really quick, and if you're not ready and you're nervous, you just panic. So yeah, all of these cues made these jumps much more accessible. And then from here, this part was kind of consistent from quite early for me. It's not as awkward. You click these 2 orbs on the late side, and then you can kind of just spam click these 3. You might want to time this orb as well, but I just kind of felt it out. I felt that it was a very feely timing, this one, and then you just spam the rest, and that works very consistently. And a lot of the other clicks aren't very complicated. They're self-explanatory. You click and click the orb. You click these 2 orbs, although you have to click this one late, but it's not hard timing. You just got to remember to click late. You then click and immediately click the UFO here. And then these UFO jumps are very simple as well. They can kill you, but they get very consistent and they're very straightforward, so there's not much to say about them. You just click, you click, you click. Again, you can fuck them up, but it's, that you can say that about anything. Then they don't stand out. You click. I clicked this slightly later, but to be honest, I think you can get away with a lot here on this transition. Kind of start falling down as the ship, but again, you get very used to this transition. You fly through, especially this part, especially when you're nervous, you can screw up, but it's not that hard. Again, it's very straight. I mean, look at it, it's quite straightforward. There's quite a lot of room. If you're having trouble, I recommend, again, just solidifying a particular click pattern. Don't try and spam loads of clicks to straight fly through. Just do something consistently. I would usually do 2 clicks, sort of 1, 2, and then as you come through this portal, do a very light click to try and maintain that trajectory and then fall. And then otherwise, this is quite an easy flight. And then here, it's a bit tighter than you might initially imagine. So this cloud is meant to essentially act as a hitbox. This is the corridor that you have to fly through. And this is not difficult, but again, it's really at this point that the nerves have kicked in properly. Even though we're not even at the second or the final third of the level, we're still in the 60s percent-wise. Because the start of the level is so much harder, you feel nervous earlier. And so it's straightforward. You just fly through. You might want to do a particular click to slip through this gap, and again to slip up through this gap, and then again to fly up. It's not a lots of clicks sort of part, it's a minimal click part again. That's the story of a lot of the ship parts in this level. And then up here, as you guide yourself through, this little brick flies around, as you may well have seen. And so it's a bit awkward to demonstrate looking at this screen. Basically, you can't go over. Well, actually, now that I look at the arrow, I suppose they intended you to go over, but that's stupid and no one does that. So there's a brick around here, except it makes this gap really tight, and I wouldn't recommend it. But the problem is, if you want to fall beneath it, you've actually got to fall kind of earlier than you might expect. And so I used, I believe it's this spike as a cue, as visual cue. I fly and I try and stay close to the top. Obviously don't hit the ceiling and die. Stay close if you can and try and start falling right as your ship comes in line with this spike, because I just used it because it sticks out as a, it was convenient, and that will let you fall without hitting the thing. And then you fly under it, you fly through. There's a weird platform that comes up that I didn't know existed until I watched Doggy's completion. Don't let it kill you, just fly into this gap. Simple UFO clicks. A straightforward wave, although it is not easy, mainly because this last bend is slightly higher up, but it's something that you get used to, you learn, you build physical consistency with. You might want to develop a sort of cue or just an internal timing that you got to release early, and then you have a ball, which is easy except for the fact that you can't really see it. It can absolutely kill you. Now, the first 2 clicks, just do them. They're not that hard. You can kind of still see the spikes when you do them. The final click, you'd be surprised. In my experience, you can absolutely die to this click. Obviously, if you click too early, you hit the spikes and die. But if you click too late, you'll crash into this wall. And the wall, you hit it earlier than you would expect. So you got to click early enough. And although you can't see it on the copy screen, there is a weird sort of little artifact that appears, a visual artifact at the top of the screen screen just this little thin black line that's created by some effect in the sort of the textures. You can kind of see as I scroll through here. It's this one. You can see this, or at least I could, every time I played the level. I don't know if it's affected by things like refresh rate, or I don't know why, but you could see it. And this is a perfect cue visually for when to click. You pretty much just click when your ball is in line with this. Maybe that's a tiny bit too early. Maybe you want to click a tiny bit after, but pretty much you just click when your ball lines up with this. And that might seem really hard to see. Maybe it is on your monitor, in which case, don't do this. Don't try this at home. Line it up with something else, or don't at all. But if you're looking for it, you will be able to see it quite easily. If you do this click and you're already looking out for it, it actually works really well. And then you get onto this. And pretend this moved, this is up, whatever. This is probably what people consider the hardest part towards, in the kind of second half of the level, towards the end of the level. I would tend to agree, and it's essentially because people say the timings suck, and they kind of do, but I kind of don't agree. I think a lot of them felt a lot of these timings I got to grips with earlier than the ones in AbstractDark's part. And the fact that I got to grips with it at all means that it worked better than Michigun's part. Maybe that's just me. I did say timings are my naturally best game mode. In any case, you jump, and this is not to be underestimated, the jump through here. Obviously the gap's about here, but you can screw that up and not jump at all. You hit the orb, you jump here, you hit this orb, and all of these orbs, there isn't too much to say about them. You just kind of hit them by feel, you get used to them. This one, I tried, I'm going to explain my method for doing this part, which is a part where you hit this orb, and then you have to do this awkward angled flight through a reverse, like a gravity portal, and then you've got to come up such that you're able to reach this orb and hit it. And that all happens very quickly, and it's an intense split second of gameplay. My method, because everyone has their own methods, but basically, is I click this as early as possible. Like, I basically try and buffer this into a very light tap that would let me coast into this portal, ideally on the upper end, so that it would give me time to let the ship fall, and then I would do the next click and hold late, which would dodge this spike and take me up to this orb. That's kind of a lot going on. Some people, I think, do 2 clicks once they hit this portal, but I just found it easier to just do 1 click to coast in and 1 click to fly out. You just got to make sure not to do the 1 click here too early and hit the spike. That's what I would recommend based on my experience. You click this orb, fly down, you hold so that you immediately jump off of a platform, click this blue orb, this yellow orb, click this blue orb after you're in the portal, which is, it's hard to click it too early. So you just click this orb. All of these you pretty much just time, neutral timing. That's the term I'm going to coin. I'm going to coin that term. That's the best one. Neutral timing, so not early or late, neutral. Neutral timing, so that you reverse and jump off immediately. Again, neutral timing. None of these clicks on these orbs you need to do with any particular early or late. And the reason I'd advise that is that they are a bit weird. Like, I don't know about playtesting, but you can kind of get offline if you time too many of the orbs in weird ways. So just try and keep it simple and straightforward. Just don't get too off course. Hit this as a UFO, you jump up. You jump before you hit this cog twice, so jump, and then a 4th jump through these spikes. That's not a horrendously complicated pattern, although again it's quite compact and fast paced. The way this part works is you have a lot of inputs quite quickly, but once you learn them, they are less overwhelming and actually quite simple. Again, now that you're the cube, you hit this neutral timing. Once you've hit the portal, you click this so that you fly up. Click this orb so that you fly into this portal. Wait and jump once this platform slid here, out of the gap into this wave. You start with an immediately little click up and through, and this is a very simple wave. You do this, you jump over these spikes, which is very forgiving. You click this orb to come up to this platform, and then this is the next little important crux of this part. You are meant to, as you can see, slide into the pad, fall down, click the blue orb, and not the yellow orb, which is easier said than done. Slide into this pad, click the blue orb again, which you can just buffer, jump, and jump. This blue orb is not easy to hit, because the way the orb hitbox overlap works, it's just tricky. It's a tight timing window, and it's possible to jump before you hit this pad straight over. Now, I don't really know whether that is a more forgiving timing window than hitting the orb. It might not be. Like, I'm not sure. They both feel doable. For a long time I hit the blue orb and I got pretty good at it. But it just felt immediately apparent to me when I tried, even after practicing like with the orb for 2 weeks or something. I tried skipping the pad and it was so obvious that it was safer at the very least. Because even if the timing windows are comparable, it's way more precarious trying to watch, just because of the way the cube reacts to the gravity and moves, how quick it appears to move. It's way easier to watch it and make sure and just watch the cube reach the right point and click than it is to try and essentially just guess on feel and muscle memory when to click this orb. So I would strongly advise you skip the pad. And don't underestimate these jumps, because you can, if you're nervous and panicking, jump too early and just die. Just get squished. And from here, the level's free. I want to go out on a limb and say it's just free. It just is. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. Maybe people have had traumatic experiences with the end of the level and died a lot. I've seen such experiences. I didn't really pay that much attention at the time, but EVW had a rotter, as they say. I don't know how he died so many times here, to be honest, and that's coming from me. Look at my thumbnails. Not literally, obviously. There's nothing wrong with my thumbs in real life, but, in any case. To be honest, it's really simple. And while they've been described as having quirks to it, like a lot of the timings they might seem unassuming, but they can kill you. Yeah, but can they really? The first one is hard, especially because of this whole flashbang situation. But it's not that hard. You jump, click the orb, jump immediately, and this, the first jump is pretty much the only really hard one. You can jump too early here, which is what I did. That's the latest death I ever had in the level. Don't do that. It's not that I don't know how I did that. That's the best example I could give of how this part could kill you. To the point that I was just echoing. Random shit can kill you here. I guess it can, but the chance is very low. Especially if you try and focus. You jump, click and jump immediately. This is the other jump that I would say notably could kill you more than the rest, because you do have to judge the timing for this gap, and it is easy. You can hit the top or the bottom, but it's open, and you can get consistent at it and get a good feel for it. The following inputs are largely simple. After come off the pad, you click this orb to fly up here. These spikes are hard to die to. Don't jump too late. It's hard to jump too early, so just jump over these triple spikes. There's a lot of room. These aren't very tight timing windows. You click the orb. This little sequence, as you come up with the robot, don't jump super high and then click this blue orb. Jump and then kind of be even, if not a little bit lower, when you click the orb. If you're lower down, if you have a shorter jump and then you click the orb, it will send your cube through this green orb online in the center. If you jump too high, weird shit happens and you end up way off in front of it to the right. And that can work, but it can also not work. And it just made a lot more sense and seemed a lot more safe to take the precaution on this jump so that you go straight through the middle. And then you just have to click late. Doesn't have to be super late, but late enough that you go over these triple spikes. Don't jump too early, give it a little moment so that you don't hit these spikes. And then as this robot, jump all the way. Maximum jump. If you leave it a bit short, you'll hit these orbs and you'll hit the spike. And then you hit this orb, you jump into this pad, orb, hop hop. That's, really hard to die to. You can kind of die to these, but this part really, if you want to, people could argue that you could die there, but you can die doing all sorts of things in real life, People do die to vending machines and such, and that sucks, but I don't blame them. I wouldn't be fearful of my life if I was using a vending machine, and I think you'd be right to approach life like that. And then if from that robot onwards was free, from this ship onwards is super, super free. Also, this isn't me saying that you should be thinking this is super, super free right now when you're here in the level. I think that's one of the ways that you could get yourself killed. But just focus, because you should be able to have faith in the fact that focusing here probably means you're going to be fine. You enter as the mini ship. I don't really get the hitboxes here, but they're not hard. It kind of looks like intimidating, but really it's very open. You can just do one click to float over through this orb, click up, click again to just float through the orb, fly up, bang, 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 hit the orbs. Hold the last orb. Don't do a light click and release, because if you go in too low, you just are headed towards danger too quick. If you hold a bit more so that you're in the middle and maybe even holding into the very beginning of the wave so you go up a bit, you have way more room to fall down. And if you do that, you pretty much only need one click up, down to reach the mini wave transition. Up, down, it's very simple. This is very open. I didn't even really have a click pattern for this. Not one I consciously figured out. You just go through. Then the next word of like specific warning here is to make sure you can do this UFO consistently. I liked to try and be moving up into the portal. I didn't want to fall through, because then it's just really, I couldn't figure out a clean way of getting these clicks to work. So try and kind of fall down and click into the UFO transition, and then it's 4 jumps. You can do click, 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 and you've actually got a lot of wiggle room with how you time it based off of how they work. 4 clicks you should be able to make work very, very, very consistently every time. You then fall down, do another couple clicks up here, something like that, another couple clicks here. As you fall through, jump, jump, orb. You can like do premature clicks, or in this transition, after doing 2 clicks to float through, don't click again as the UFO by accident. Don't try and buffer this too early, because I think that screws stuff up. Just jump, and then click the orb. Immediately do a light click to clear, so that you clear over these spikes. Then second click to fly up and through here, which again is actually a lot of space. Then you just click this orb to fly up, and click this orb. You can click this orb too early, but I mean, look at it. That's really difficult to do. I only ever did it once by accident in practice, and I didn't really think about it afterwards. It just never happened again. And yeah, you click this orb and kind of hold and come through here. And then this jewel. The second you come off of these pads in your midair, I buffer. So that I buffer the first clicks. I just watch the UFO. So I buffer the first click, and I watch the UFO jump, and then I do a second click to jump again. Then in this jewel, I just watch the lower wave, and you wave, click, down, hold, and you like keep holding, and you come up as the ship or something. You hold until you're coming up to these orbs. Click, click. This orb you could conceivably get killed by, because you've got to thread through this gap. And if the click is too long, you will just hit these spikes and there's nothing you can do about it. If you click too short, you'll have to do another click, which you could do, but is a bit awkward. It's not that hard to get this click right though, so I wouldn't stress about it, but practice it and get used to it. Straight fly, as you'll notice, aimed up a bit. I don't know if that's actually true. Maybe it's moving parts, I don't think it is. Be vigilant through here though, because in practice at least, it killed me once or twice. It killed me a handful of times. So focus, don't lose focus, but it is just an open straight fly. As you transition in here, you have to do a little click immediately, or else you would crash into spikes. And then here, this part's weird. You might not get it at all if you've just looked at it for the first time and seen it for the first time in practice. I didn't either. You just look at this wave, the lower wave. You go up, down, hold here up, and kind of keep holding as you come through, so that you, as the cube, don't like do a floppy, sad transition, but you do, what's the opposite of floppy I'm using here? You just do a nice, like a confident transition. You come up through. Now that you're the cube, you watch the cube, click here, then you hold this long enough so that the cube goes and jumps, and then you click in the middle of this, so the cube goes up. And this click you hold, so you hold from this click, and watch what is now the mini cube jump, and once it's jumped off here, you let go and you click as you click this as you get there, and then you just slide down here. Don't jump based off of panic or trying to buffer this mega early, because you'll die. Slide, hit this, jump, and that's the end of the level, by the way. That's it. A certain Vortrox died here. He did some weird shit that I don't do. The end of the level is easy, it's consistent, it's theoretically possible to kill you, but that applies all the time anyway, so who cares? So yeah, that's it. Thank you everybody and good night. Thank you everybody. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone and good night. I don't know, fuck off. come on! Fucking yes! Oh, I sound like such a fucking chav when I can fucking... Oh, come on. I don't care. That was the shittest day yet. Literally went and did a 2,000 attempt tidal wave practice mode and then did this. Thank fucking God. I didn't die in 90-something%. We call that a fluke from 78, where I'm from.